Hey everybody, welcome to etrailer.com. I'm Bobby, and today we're taking a look at the Curt Premium 4-bike hanging style rack here on the back of our 2022 Chevy Trailblazer. So this is going to be a very decent way, guys, of getting 4 bikes here on the back of your Trailblazer. And one thing I really like about it that makes it unique is going to be this tapered arm set. So what's great about this, you are having a way easier time of actually holding on to your bikes. And what's great about that, and why it's great, is over here we have our longer posts, right? This is pretty much your standard, and you're gonna need this horizontal travel length of your bars to actually make it work. But what happens if you have something like maybe a women's bike, a step-through bike, or a kid's bike that just doesn't quite have that? Well, predominantly, the kids' bikes are what we're really looking at to solve this issue with, because they usually have that horizontal bar, but it's not quite long enough. What's nice about this, though, we can go ahead, bring it here to our closer tapered end, and therefore, we're hopefully eliminating the need for that bike adapter bar because we don't have that super long length we have to travel, which is excellent. Now, those bike adapter bars aren't the end of the world, especially if you're looking at some other hanging style carriers. And if that's between, your toss-up on this guy, again, it's going to be a little up to you. What's hard about those bike adapter bars, they're one more thing to keep track of, and it's always never too fun actually on those Saturday mornings to have to do a little scavenger hunt before you start going. So like that we don't have to worry about the back adapter bars. And on the very end of this, you are seeing some nice little reflector units. That's excellent, especially in an all-black rack, to let people know exactly where we are. Now, are they the best? No, they're just decent. Hopefully, they're catching that headlight. Something like the Hollywood Racks reflectors just seem to do a little bit of a better job, but I still like seeing them on the end of our carrier here. So what's great about this bike rack too, we are having 180 pounds of weight capacity with this whole system. That puts you about 45 pounds per bike each. Now I probably really want to try to exceed that very much, even up into that 50 mark, just because you're putting a lot of pressure on one point on this system, and that can definitely not be too great. So let's make sure we're kind of staying within those weight capacities. Now, what kind of bikes can get on here? Well, of course, we do have our nice little tapered arm to make sure that we can get some of those more irregular bikes on here. However, we still have frame contact, so not going to be great for your carbon frame bikes, as that can put a lot of pressure on that frame, and that can start ending up deteriorating it or warping it, and we definitely don't want that. Now, how this cradle system works here, we just have some rubber straps that are holding us in. All we got to do, of course, is stretch that over to our other plastic knobs. This is a hard plastic, so not going to be the easiest on your frames. Definitely not going to be the worst, though, as it's not metal. Now, this plastic stripping here seems to be decent enough. I definitely could see this maybe not really liking it being in the sun too much, just because it is a softer, supple plastic, and that can break down pretty quickly, or that rubber, I should say. Now, the underside here, though, we do have an anti-sway cradle. Really do like these guys, and honestly, they're pretty necessary in any hanging style rack. Now, how well of a job does it do? Well, that's going to be a little bit up to our own bikes at home. You can see this one, not really that great. What it does, though, prevent it from tilting too much, but we're still going to see this action as we go down the road, and that can definitely start having an interaction with your bikes. Now, there's a couple ways of kind of, circumventing that. One thing you can always do, just grab yourself a cam buckle system or some kind of strap system, run it through all 4 of your bikes, and kind of make them one big glob. Now, you're still going to have some sway, but hopefully your bikes aren't going to be interacting with each other as much, and therefore won't be damaging themselves. Now, before we move our bike here off our carrier, I wanted to see how it's interacting here on our Trailblazer. So you can see we're definitely having a little interaction there with our tail lights, and as you have more and more bikes on here, you're going to see a little bit more of that interaction. Now, what's decent though, we do have this distance between here, so the emittance of that light should still be seen, and of course you have your top cowling there, letting people know exactly where you are. Now, for our backup camera, lucky for us, it actually is pretty low here on the underside there of our hatch, and it is a little offset, so I think we actually would have a pretty decent time actually seeing out of the back of there, which can be excellent. Now, to that end though, if you start getting your lower bikes, maybe you start seeing a little less interaction, and definitely losing a lot on your passenger side. To remove our bike, it's pretty straightforward. All we have to do, undo our straps here, simply pulling them to make them go around our plastic knobs, just like so. And of course with our anti-sway. And now that brings us to our last point. I can simply grab our bike, walk it off, and we're all ready to ride. Now, the one thing I'll say though, when you are kind of mounting it up, just making sure that all of your anti-sway is out of the way, and just being gentle as you actually get your bike on there can be helpful. With our bike removed, we actually get access to the hatch here on our Trailblazer. To do that, we bring ourselves to the underside here. Gonna remove this little clip here first. I like to loosen up this back knob as well. That makes it a little easier to actually slide your bolt out. And we still have this top bolt that's actually holding us in. Let's make sure we are supporting our carrier. Now, for today, we may need to actually drop these arms, but I just wanted to see how it interacts by simply just taking our bike off like we're at the trail. and that's going to allow it to tilt down. Luckily, we're having no interaction there, and that's going to allow me to pop open my hatch here and get access to the back of our Trailblazer. Now, obviously, you could just have your bike here in the back of your Trailblazer, but that's going to lose all that cargo room, let alone your second seat. So really like to see that we're actually getting a carrier to get that bike out of here, and that way we can start storing our coolers, bike helmets, anything else we might need, and of course, we have that second row for all our passengers, which is great. I can go ahead and close this up though, and then walk it up. Really, really simple. I like to walk it up and set this pin first to go ahead and hold it in place. We can run that clip back in, just like so. And then, of course, let's make sure we are tightening up this back bolt to take out all that shake and play. So we do have a couple dimensions to keep in mind. Now, lucky for us, we are on a hanging style rack, so our clearance here isn't going to be the biggest issue. Now, if you do find yourself with a very large wheelbase or very large tires, and you kind of see it dipping down a little lower, that might be something to go ahead and check at home, making sure you're not having interactions with your tires and the ground, of course. But I think a lot of us are going to be in a pretty good position. The one thing I want to look at though is how much length we're actually adding here to our Trailblazer. So from the back of our carrier here today to the very end of our carrier, that's going to be putting us right at about 35 1/4 inch to the very back of our platform. So definitely a lot of length to consider, but we do have a way of shortening that down. To do so, we're going to bring ourselves right to the middle here again. We're going to have another spring clip and pin to remove, and simply by supporting our mast, you can kind of wiggle that out, drop it down. I do like this safety clip here, making sure that I'm not losing the pin. If you guys are a little like me, a little forgetful, always nice to have it just attached, but that's going to reduce my size quite a bit. Now in this position, you might hear a little bit of this action, and that's one thing I'm not too happy with the CURT. You're just seeing a little bit of loose connection points, especially you compare this to something like the Thule Hitching Post Pro. I mean, that thing is solid. You hear nothing at all once it slots in, so that's definitely kind of a negative for it. But I do like that we can shorten down that length, especially for our 4-bike hanging style rack. Now on the back here of my platform to the very end, from the back of our bumper, that's going to put us at 10 1/4 inch to the very end. So definitely not too much length in this position. Going to be easier to pull this in the garage, or at the very least, give yourself some maneuverability when you want to park it. Moving our way down to the inside though here, I do want to go ahead and just give us this little clearance, just because it is a little low sitting with our hitch here today. And that is going to be right at about 10 inches there to the underside. Now again, just keep in mind as those front wheels go up, the back will go down, and so will your hitch mounted accessories. So if you find yourself approaching a very steep incline, let's just take it nice and safe and slow to be sure. Moving our way down though, we can see we do have our 2-inch shank, again held in by that 2-inch hitch receiver. On the inside of that, you are seeing a threaded anti-rattle hitch bolt. Now those guys are pretty standard across the industry. We just have a little clip holding it in place, but you love to see them still as they take out all that shake and play our carrier is naturally going to have. And as you can see, as I shake this, it's shaking the entirety of our Trailblazer. Again, you are seeing a little bit of this interaction, and that's just one thing about the CURT that I'm not the biggest fan of. Now, how can we combat that? Well, you can shake it a little bit more and really start doing a number on that back knob. That can reduce it a little bit, but you're still just going to have a little bit of shake and play with this guy. So that's definitely something to consider. But I love that we have that anti-rattle bolt. It does go a long way of reducing that road shake that's going to be transferred to our bikes. And again, as we kind of mentioned, that anti-rattle isn't the best on this guy. It does a decent job of keeping it in line and reducing, of course, that velocity that we're going to have as we swing. But again, it's definitely not the best out there. Overall, I think that the CURT 4-bike premium style rack is excellent, especially for family-minded bikers, because you're having that nice tapered in. And I think that's really the niche of this guy. If you're trying to avoid those bike adapter bars, look no further than this guy. Otherwise, there's a variety of different hanging style bike rack carriers out there. Personally, I love the Thule Hitching Post Pro. It's got that quintessential bike rack look without being too foreboding, and just a lot of pins and clips to have to worry about. Very, very straightforward, and I love how it works.
This is our test course. Let's start with the slalom. This shows side-to-side action, such as turning corners or evasive maneuvering. Then, onto our alternating speed bumps. This shows twisting action, such as hitting curbs, potholes, road debris, or even uneven pavement. Last of all, the solid speed bumps. This shows up and down action, such as driving through a parking lot or parking garage, or driving in and out of a driveway.
But again, this is still going to really do the job if you're looking for something to make it a little easier to take the family out. Otherwise though, guys, I think that about does it for our look here today at the CURT Premium 4-bike hanging style carrier here on the back of our 2022 Chevy Trailblazer. I'm Bobby. Thank you for watching.